This video is a book review about the book Philosophers on God, talking about existence, edited by Jack Symes. It contains many contributions by different philosophers, famous philosophers, and it also has an introduction by Philip Pullman, which is interesting. This is a book about God, and Philip Pullman is a famous author, but he's also known as an atheist. So this is interesting that he writes a sort of introductory note to this Philosophers on God. You know, he's the author of his Dark Materials, including The Golden Compass. Philosophers on God is a brilliant, readable, and the topic is endlessly fascinating, whether God exists or not. He or she has many advantages for the philosopher as a topic of speculation, not at least that we are not likely to run out of things to say about the matter, because it will never be resolved. In this well-structured book, Jack Symes faces several eminent thinkers, some believers and some not, with exactly the sort of question we put forward ourselves if we could think clearly enough. Some of their answers are more familiar than others. Naturally, some surprised me, all told me something, and some told me a lot. None persuaded me completely. I end much as I began, like the judge in one of F.E. Smith's cases, no wiser than before, but much better informed. Philip Pullman. And that's also the very, very, very interesting thing about this book, because it's Philosophers on God. So there are many prominent philosophers who believe in God and argue that God exists. But there are also atheists who ponders about God's non-existence or possible existence. So this is a book that has many layers and many nuances and many complexities. So it's a highly recommendable book. It's also fairly cheap. It's a paperback, and it doesn't cost that much money on Amazon. It was sent to me by the publishing house, Bloomsbury. I don't know if you can see it here. I have reviewed a few of their books by now, so I thought it was natural for them to send me a copy of this so I can review it. It's a big topic for this book, right? God. It's kind of like for some, it's the meaning of life, the meaning of creation, the meaning of everything. And also for atheists, God is a big subject. If you take the famous philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, God is dead, with that dies everything, meaning, value, morals, and so forth, according to Nietzsche. So this is very exciting about this, the concept of God. So I kind of feel like Phil Pullman, after reading this book, that none persuaded me of there is a God, and none persuaded me that there isn't a God. I kind of just understood something more deeply, I think, after reading this book. I'm more informed, as Philip Pullman puts it. Check out some of these contributors to this book. We got Richard Swinburne, William Lane Craig, Susan Blackmore, Richard Dawkins, Stephen Law, Daniel Dennett, just to name a few. I also want to say something about how the book is structured. You have these boxes you can read or you can not read, which goes thoroughly into, for instance, a person. You see it's highlighted here. Then there's you could call it a fact box. Also, this three major Western religions, it goes into what are the three major religions. So you can read them if you don't know, but if you know, you can skip it. So it's kind of like at more in depth to so everybody can be in this. Also, this about Pascal's wager. You have an illustration here. Also about Blaise Pascal, you have a fact box here, and these are not long chapters from each contributors. Now there are so many ideas and concepts explored in this book here, so it's impossible for me to go in depth to all of them. So I decided to structure this review by going into 3 different chapters, the chapters I found most interesting. And I'm not saying they are the best chapters, because that will be up to the individual what you would prefer, or what you like, or what you're interested in. And this whole review here is not a big argument for God does not exist. That's up for you to decide what you believe. That's probably also one of the main points by this book, to explore the subject for yourself and explore your own beliefs, your own rationality and so forth. Do your rationality, logic lead to God, or does it lead to something that doesn't have a place for God, or something in between? I myself don't really see myself in this as a Christian believer. I don't see myself as an atheist, but I kind of more understand arguments that are for there not being a anthropocentric God of some sort, a omnipotent God, a all-knowing God. I can't see the logic in that really, but you might, so that would be up for you if you read this book. So the first chapter I'd like to talk about is this God is a meme. It's by Susan Blackmore. Susan Blackmore is a visiting professor of psychology at the University of Plymouth, UK. So she's a clinical psychologist or a professor in psychology. So this is also interesting about the psychology behind why believing in a God, in a all-knowing, omnipotent God, for instance. So this is an interesting chapter. This God is a meme. I want to strike down here when she writes on page 64 of the chapter, God is a meme. Anthropologists think that the early God, and this is spelled here with a small g, were like this. They inhabited local places and dealt with local hopes and fears. But when human groups grew larger and cities formed, people could no longer know everyone they met. So trust became a problem. It is much easier to cheat or steal if you think no one knows you. Enter the big, punishing gods with capital G, gods with a big capital G. The idea of an all-powerful, all-seeing, vengeful, invisible agent that sees and judges everything you do took the place of mutual trust between people who knew each other. So that's the interesting concept here from a psychological viewpoint. Why have a God? Well, it has a cultural and social significance for us in our development from small hunter-gatherers to big cities that were also in ancient times. The city in Mayan culture was supposedly, I think, millions living there, also in ancient Rome. So you have this, it's funny I said ancient Rome, because this is where the big Christian God developed, because the Roman Empire ended up being ruled by Christian emperors who made Christianity the one true religion, the one true God, the one true ruler. I see you, what you do. When the ruler's not looking, God is looking. Do you cheat? Do you steal? Do you lie? Are you unfaithful to your wife, husband, and so forth? So it becomes this morality and law which are structured to hold society together. A more negative viewpoint, I would add, I can't remember if it's in the chapter, but that's the whole idea of control. From the ruler's point of view, that religion can control. That's also the idea about from Karl Marx. Later on, Karl Marx, you know, the one with behind Marxism and the Communist Manifesto, what is it called? That religion is opium for the people. It's a system of control to keep them in line, and it also controls those who control. It keeps everybody in control and in line in this structured society we have built. These great religions still cling to the biological basis they emerge from, controlling women's bodies to create more babies, promoting values, prohibiting sex before marriages, adultery, homosexuality, masturbation, and anything else that wastes semen. God is very good at controlling people's sex life. So I just remember when I read what I outlined here that this chapter is very much also about the controlling factor about behind religion. That it very much has controlled our sex lives. So this is also one of these reasons why I don't really believe in the Christian God, because it seems very much like an anthropocentric, male-orientated religion. Where is the female around Jesus? Well, he was born by a virgin, so it's a woman who doesn't have sex in order to get born the Son of God. Otherwise she would be a prostitute. Yeah, that's the other women that's in there. Mary Magdalene, she's a prostitute. She couldn't have been Jesus' wife or something. No, she's a prostitute. So you have this male-oriented group about Jesus and his followers, who are all men, who can keep a clean woman, a non-promiscuous woman in wedlock. I'm sorry to say, but that's what it comes forth to me, that this is there is a controlling factor behind the origin of the Christian monotheistic religion. So that's one of my things where I cannot follow it. Even if you believe in a God who created the universe, who started everything and is a creative entity and possibly the origin of our morals, it still defies logic, and I cannot buy into it because it has all this baggage of being a controlling device also. Also, the very, very, very interesting part about this book, that each chapter ends with questions to consider, where you kind of topics are highlighted in each chapter, and here are put into question. You can ask yourself, and there are also recommended reading at the end of each chapter. You have the advanced reading, where you can read Susan Blackmore's own book, The Meme Machine, or the Oxford Handbook on Atheism, and it also has an intermediate recommended reading. And then you have the beginner reading. So there's something for everybody, and also good with these questions to kind of highlight what have I read in this chapter, how do I understand this chapter I just read, you can use these questions for help. Let me give you an example of these questions. How does the God meme differ from the science meme? Or are some religions less dangerous than others? Why do you think God meme is so powerful? Does the God meme hate human rights? And there's so much wealth in these questions, which are at the end of each chapter. So this is a very good thing about this book. The next chapter I would like to go into is Ex Deo by Jessica Fraser. And Jessica Fraser is a lecturer in the study of religion at the University of Oxford, UK. She's not that well known. It's not a philosopher I knew before I read this book. But this is an interesting chapter, one of my favorites in the book, called Ex Deo, because it goes more into another kind of God. Hinduism, which is one of the oldest religions in the world. This is a Buddhist sculpture here, and Buddhism, of course, is well, Hinduism is the forerunner to Buddhism, and Buddhism develops from a Hinduistic religion. This whole chapter is about recommending Hinduism as a way to solve many of these metaphysical problems in philosophy, with examples from a religious viewpoint. And you know, also Hinduism has another kind of God than the Christian God. So this is why it's interesting to me. One of the questions here to consider at the end of the chapter, the first one, in what way, if at all, are Hindu ideas of divine preferable to Abrahamic monotheism? So you basically ask which kind of view of God is better, the Hinduistic viewpoint or a monotheistic viewpoint. So this is an interesting chapter indeed. How Hinduism and Hinduistic philosophies are very interesting, even for the Western philosopher. And it's been like that for ages, because many or some famous philosophers from the history of philosophy was actually very interested in Asian philosophies or Asian thinking or Asian religion, like Hinduism. One of them being Arthur Schopenhauer. He was very much into this Hinduistic viewpoints. So, and very interesting chapter indeed. The last chapter I would like to go into here as one of my three favorites is The World is God by Asher Lancaster Thomas. She's not that fairly known either. She writes here, some of the strongest motivations for pantheism are the reasons for rejecting other worldviews. For example, the biggest objection to classical monotheism is the problem of evil and suffering. How could an all-loving, all-powerful God allow so many people and animals to suffer so horrendously? Pantheism sidesteps the problem. The God of pantheism isn't beholden to being all-powerful or all-loving. It had no allegiances to scripture or religious tradition. Therefore, the pantheistic God can fit the evidence as we find it. So this is very interesting. I want to see here if there's a fact box that can explain pantheism in short, or do I have to do it myself? I I can't really find one right now, but pantheism, pan means everything, so and theism is gods. So this is an all God. Everywhere the sum of everything is God. Pantheism is also labeled. I actually wrote my bachelor thesis on pantheism and the concept of pantheism, because I found it very interesting when I was at university. It's about seeing everything in the entire universe as one thing, maybe one organism, maybe one consciousness or some sort. I've always been interested in this. I thought it was more a logical way to view God, not as an omnipotent, all-knowing God, but more as a sort of process, a creative process, a creative designer process or something like that. There could be many concepts that could fit into pantheism. That's what I also find very interesting. What is God? If there really is a God, what would that concept really look like? And I think the concept of a pantheistic viewpoint or godlikeness seems more reasonable and rational to me. I'm more open for that. Similarly, another colossal challenges for classical monotheism is the problem of divine hiddenness. That is why the God of classical monotheism doesn't show himself to his creation more obviously. Why does God hide? Is he shy? On pantheism, what you see is what you get. God, rather than hiding, is in full display all the time, in all places, to all the world's creatures. So that's also the interesting thing about pantheism here, that if everything is God, you see God every day. Just look under a stone, just see the spider, just look at your kids. It's all around this beauty, this beautiful world. So it's in pantheism you get the celebration of life that you don't always get from monotheistic religions, where you kind of more rewarded after death. So that's also been a problem for me. There's two major reasons why I don't believe in God. The first reason I would like to call an exclusion of knowledge. I'm a philosopher, and philosophia, literally from Greek means the love of wisdom. It's about understanding thing, to get an insight into thing, to really understand it and be wise about it. But I feel like I don't really get wise or getting closer to understand this concept of God, because it seems strange and at some point irrational. And there's this particular exclusion of knowledge. Like, why does God, if it's an creative, omnipotent, all-knowing God, what does it do the way it does? And you always get the explanation in these monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and maybe even also Islam. God works in mysterious ways. When something happens, well, it's unexplainable. God knows what he does, but man doesn't know. What is it? Is God a entity, an old man who sits on a cloud, anthropocentric God who plays chess with people? What's going on? It's very strange. And also in the exclusion of knowledge, we found dinosaurs, and we found dinosaurs very late on in the history of humankind, long time after the development of the concept of God. And what does the concept of God has to say about dinosaurs? Nothing really. They were not on Noah's Ark. They lived they might live with people 6,000 years ago, but they were not on Noah's Ark. And scientists, serious scientists, doesn't really believe that we lived alongside the dinosaurs. They lived millions of years back. Why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? Why are they excluded? Supposedly the dinosaurs developed and thrived for over 107 million years, 170 million years. That's a lot of time. And even before the dinosaurs, you have stem animals, or proto-mammals, they're called. This is a dimetrodon. You might say that's a reptile. No, scientists has concluded that these were stem animals, proto-mammals, a kind of mixture between animals and reptiles, and they died out in the Permian age, a very long time ago, around 250 million years ago. And then the dinosaurs took over after the Permian in the Triassic, Jurassic, and the Cretaceous times. And then they died out, and then the mammals took over. And right here at the end, I don't know, it's a million years back, man was developed. So yeah, I buy revolution, that something isn't just there. A God just didn't put things there, and it's been like that for forever. No, it's a process. It's a process of evolution. It's a process of change. It's a process of the creative development. So there's this kind of exclusion of knowledge within the concept of God. Why were the dinosaurs, and why weren't they that important? Why killed them all off in when the giant asteroid hit Earth? Why kill all the dinosaurs? People say, God, he wiped out the dinosaurs. With just a blink of an eye, he put an asteroid against them, and then they die. It was much more serious than that. When that asteroid hit Earth, the Earth became so extremely warm with volcanic activity and so forth that literally many dinosaurs were just boiled alive. That's a long process of being boiled alive. This is terrible. So many living creatures just killed off. Why would God do such a thing? And that comes into my next big factor why I don't believe in God. That's the whole moral aspect of it, that who says whatever concept we call God, that it's an ethical God, that it's a moral God. There's a lot of things that point to that God not being particularly moral or ethical. And that's also something that comes forth from some of these persons, atheists, who have contributed to this book. It's also something they stipulate, that we don't know that if a God really was something that existed, we can then go on to say the next thing, well, if that God existed, it is an immoral God. Small children die from cancer. That's a moral problem for me that I cannot explain. And it's fairly easy to say, well, God works in mysterious ways. That's fairly easy. No, why do small children get cancer and die? Luckily, my small children, I have small children, they haven't got cancer, and I hope they won't get cancer. It's a terrible thought if they got cancer and died. And when you see those small children with your own eyes as a father or as a human being, you cannot understand why a benevolent God would exist that would do that sort of thing to children, or boil so many dinosaurs alive. So again, that's my moral point here, that just because there might be a God, it's possible. I don't, of course, know anything. It's possible there is a God. There's not that many things that points to that it's a moral good God. And if it's not a moral good God, then what the hell is going on? Are we in big trouble, or is it maybe insignificant if it's moral or not. And again points back to there might not being a God, because if there were a God, things would be morally in order and less chaotic and so forth. So, but there isn't. Again, I'm rambling here, but that's my personal viewpoints why I don't think there is a God, and the whole topic of there is a God might be ludicrous. But that's for me. Again, if you have a viewpoint and you believe in God, then there are philosophers in this book who contribute to why that's, for instance, this chapter, the necessary existence. There's also something reasonable faith by William Lane Craig, and also Richard Swinburne, who's a known philosopher, who's religious, who is a man of faith, who writes about the coherence of theism. So there's something for everybody in this, and you do get a more broader, informed viewpoint about the concept of God from philosophers. So here is the highly recommended book for you to read. And I hope you enjoyed this book review, and I'll see you in the next video.